What's up, everyone? And this is Next Level Thinking. What's up, everyone? This is another exciting episode of Next Level Thinking. It's your host, Chris Holmes, as always bringing you inspirational guests to help you take it to the next level. And today I have my lovely guest by the name of...
This is Tony Panico, longtime marketing guru,
Hey,
especially if you're looking to raise money or if
that's
you're
good.
looking for people who will want to raise money.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you keep going with the groundworks and tell a little bit more about what you do. So you already set it off saying like help people raise money and sound like you were a good person with a lot of connections with marketing. So go ahead and with further detail.
Well, the name of my company is Partners for Marketing. My corporate name is Partners for Prosperity, LLC. And what we basically do is work with people who are in the financial industry, like banking, insurance, and brokerage services. We have been working for over 30 years with major companies like Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Wells Fargo, practically every major insurance company in the industry, in the country. I personally have been an insurance advisor and an estate planner since 1990. And what we try to do is we try to help people who are advisors or who are looking to raise money to teach them how to meet other people out there that could either become clients or associates, depending on what they're trying to accomplish.
Awesome, and great setup. So I hear you with the financial advising and things and much more. And I want to throw this question to you. Isn't communication everything when it comes to connecting with other people? I want you to go ahead and fill your expertise on that because I feel like that's a common problem people face a lot.
Well, communication, of course, is important, but unlike most other businesses, this business really requires being able to actually meet people and look into their eyes and allow them to look into your eyes and to truly build a trust relationship. Okay. Unlike being the guy that's trying to sell 100 Mercedes Benz or 100 trips to the Orient or any of those things, okay? What we're trying to do is to help you to meet one or two people a year that'll hand you $1 million or $2 million or $10 million. Okay.
And that right there is life-changing. That's life-changing.
That is a very big different approach from, just blasting out hundreds of advertisings. Okay. And because of that, frankly, a lot of people fail at it. If I told you how many guys got into the business every year and lasted more than 2 years, you'd be shocked, because the number of guys that come into the advisor business or the portfolio management business or the insurance business and they're out of the business almost as fast as they joined, because it's not easy to find people to make new clients. The guys that usually make it are the guys that come in whose dad has been successful at it, and so they take over their dad's business.
Now, let me go ahead and add value to exactly what you said, because I didn't tell you earlier, but I used to intern with Northwestern Mutual, so I'm very familiar when it comes to client business, building relationships.
What if I told this will blow your mind?
And I struggled.
This will blow your mind. Guess who I
I
started with in 1989?
Don't
Northwestern Mutual Life. That's absolutely right. As a matter of fact, the first $1 million check I took was for Northwestern Mutual. And I was with them 4 months.
Wait a minute. You 4 months and you did
4
that?
months. Okay. And I tell this story to everybody. Okay. I started the general manager that I was working for was a gentleman by the name of David Checo, who I believe is retired now. And when you go to work for Northwestern, you pay for everything yourself, or you used to anyway. I'm assuming it's the same way now.
Oh yes.
And you're working strictly on a commission basis. Okay. And when I got into the business, the reason I went with Northwestern was I had been a biomedical engineer. And I had been working in the biomedical engineering business for about 12 years. And I lost my job. And I happened to have a life insurance policy with Northwestern, a whole life insurance policy. I think it was a $250,000 policy. And when I told my agent that I had lost my job, he suggested, well, why don't you join Northwestern? So I said, after thinking about it, I said, okay. So I took my insurance test and I passed that. Then I took my Series 6 and I passed that. And now I went to work, and now I'm in this office that I'm paying for every month. Okay. And I'm waiting for the money to start coming in, right? And it ain't coming in.
And that is a test among yourself.
Okay. And this happens to everyone that goes into this business. Everyone. Okay. So I'm sitting behind my desk, and I was there about a month. And David walks into my office and he says to me, he says, Tony, I'm going to start mailing out 500 mailers a month for you. And anybody who responds positively by sending back one of these response cards, I will give to you. And then just before he leaves my office, he says, oh, by the way, I'm going to be deducting $200 a month out of your check to pay for this.
Whew, that's going to test somebody.
This was in 1989, by the way. Okay. So I wasn't too happy with the $200 a month, okay? So he starts mailing out, and every time he did a mail out, he also would give me the list of 500 people and their phone numbers. It was like a list. And I didn't see any real action from it until about 5 weeks after he started. But after 5 weeks, every week he'd come in and he'd have 1 or 2 response cards for me. And one of the things I found out early on was that if somebody sent the response card back, it was not that difficult to set the appointment.
Makes a lot of sense because they're interested. It's hot leads.
Okay. And the other thing I found out was that the lists he was giving me, and don't forget in 89, 90, 91, 92, you didn't have the do not call registry. So they all had phone numbers. So I also found out that if I called these people up and I made a very simple pitch, and my pitch was simply, hi, my name is Tony Panico. I'm with Northwestern Mutual here in Burlington, New Jersey, right around the corner. And I got some great information for somebody like yourself who's probably planning for retirement. Am I correct? And, because the way the list was set up, I knew that most of these people were going to be in that age range. Okay. So I found out that very quickly that if I called all these people up and if I went through 500 mailers, I would get maybe 50 of them to say, okay, send me the information.
Wow.
About 10%. And if I sent out 50 a month, I would be able to follow up with the 50 that I sent out, and I could set another 4 or 5 appointments. Okay? So all of a sudden, I was going out to see 5 to 6 to 7 new people a month.
Growth.
Then, because of the mailing part, Mr. Dave Checo would come into my office every month and he'd hand me another 5 or 6 people who responded to the mailer.
So now you have a system.
So now I got a system, okay? And then what I found out was that if you have a system and you are willing to work that system, bingo, you start making appointments. And that's what's the most important part about this industry. Just talking to people on the phone is not enough. You know, and this is very tough right now because of this COVID thing. But
yes,
generally speaking, you got to go out and make new appointments with new people. Okay. And if you could do that, if you could go out, and I just give you a little, some numbers that I've have used my entire career and they never stopped working. If you could go out and see 2 new people, just 2 new people a week, okay? By the end of the year, I guarantee you, I'm not suggesting, I'm guaranteeing you, okay? You will bring in between 3 and 6 million in new assets.
that makes a lot of sense because of the consistency, and it just piles on top of each other.
I mean, I don't know about you, but if you're selling annuities, I don't care what kind. If you're selling investments, again, I don't really care what kind, all right? Or if you're just selling insurance, okay? You bring in those kind of assets, you're gonna make yourself a pretty good living, all right? That's part A of my plan to help people build their business. Now understand, there's also part B and part C. Now, I don't know how far you want me to go. Do you want me to go to part B?
We'll do it like this. Let's get in part B, and then I'll bring you back for another one for C, because I feel like this is going to be a good story. Get you back on again.
You know, part B is really about consistency. Okay? And your consistency has to be 3 areas. Okay? Area number 1 is you've got to have good prospects that you can send them something on a regular basis. Now, back in '89, we did it with mail. Today, if you're not using email, you're nuts. Okay? You're nuts. And the reason I'm saying this to you is because the cost to send out 5,000 mailers by mail today is going to cost you at a minimum $2,500 or more, okay? Yeah. Depending on what you're sending. To send out 5,000 emails, well, I can tell you right now, you could send out 5,000 emails at a minimum of about $50 a month, at a maximum of $250. So would you rather pay $2,500 or $250?
I'll take the email.
Duh. And here's the cool part. the cool part is the results are almost identical. And I'm talking about nationally calculated data now. Okay. If I gave you, and I'm just going to tell you what I recommend. Okay. I recommend to people that if you're on a budget, you get yourself 3,000 leads. And obviously, you got to have a pro like me to help you target them properly. Okay, that's really important. Okay, because the average guy that's in the quote marketing lead business, okay, you know what he's going to do? He's going to just try to get you to 3,000 leads. He could care less about whether these people are properly targeted or not. Okay. Me, on the other hand, because I've done this and I've made a living doing it, if you give me a geography and you give me a criteria, if I can't get to 3,000 leads for you, I'm going to say to you, Chris, there ain't 3,000 leads here, brother. We got to make some changes to make this happen. Either we got to increase the geography, or we got to change the age range, or we got to change the net worth or the income, or we got to do something.
And I like that because it's complete transparency because you're trying to help the customer get the best results.
Well, that's where one of the key ingredients for what I do is important, and for what you do is important. It's called honesty. Okay. To me, I only succeed if you succeed. And it's kind of funny because now when I look at it, I mean, 80% of my clients today come from referrals, which is a whole other subject that we could. That's C, by the way.
Like I said, I'm gonna say because
C.
I know that's gonna be heavy weighted, so I want to break into pieces so they can digest.
That's C. That's a C. That's part of the C thing. Okay, but here's the thing. You got to have a contact process where you can contact. Now, I told you 3,000 leads, right? What we're doing is 1,000 a month. You go through all 3,000. Then you sort them. What does that mean? That means, okay, people who have already responded, they're going into one batch. That's a separate issue now. Okay, people who have unsubscribed or told you they're not interested, okay, they're going to be removed from the list. Okay, and then people who didn't do either. So now you got 3 lists, right? So the people who didn't do anything, you're going to go back and send them again. Now you might add a few more leads into that to make up for the unsubscribes and for the people who responded. Okay? Over the course of 12 months, I can guarantee you that if you send out to all of those households 4 times in 1 year, you're going to get a minimum of a 2% response. Now, that may not sound like a lot. However, think about it. Here's the numbers. You sent out 1,000 a month. That's 12,000 send outs a year. 12,000 send outs at 2% is 240 people responded to you.
That's when the numbers add up.
Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you something that will really blow your mind. If I asked you, what do you think the average in the investment business, like the Morgan Stanleys, the Merrill Lynches of the world, if I asked you how many new clients the average broker brought in 1 year, what would you think?
In 1 year, I'll say about 80. Is that way too high? Higher? Hold on, one?
One.
Hold up, just one?
One.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
And up to a couple of years ago, it was two.
How can you survive a business with that just like that?
Well, if you bring in two clients and each one gives you 5 mil,
Never mind.
but that's not the real problem. Let me
Okay.
tell you what the real problem is in today's business when you're talking about this industry, okay? The big problem is that, excuse me, if you go back to the year 2007 and you look at how many investors there were in the country, and you look at how many investors there are today, what you're going to see is that number is only 50% of what it was back in 2007. Okay. And the other problem, what you're going to find is that because the market has been going up unceasingly since 2009, a lot of these guys that have been in the business for the last 20 years haven't had to bring in one new client. They're making a ton of money on all their clients just because the market's going up for no other reason. Okay, so these guys have gotten a little bit lackadaisical. And the other thing is that if you take a look at the management of most of these companies out there, in the old days, the only way you got to be a manager was if you were a successful producer. Today, most managers in all of these companies are bean counters. They're all accountants, okay? They're great at counting numbers, but they never brought a customer in their life.
Which is two completely different skill sets.
Exactly. Consequently, anybody who's going into the sales side of the business in these days really has a very difficult time because there's nobody in there that really is teaching you guys how to get somebody to hand you a big check. Now, to go back to the story I was telling you about these mailings, in the 4th month that I was with Northwestern, one of the cards I got, one of the responses I got from Dave was a gentleman who said on the card, he said, listen, I'm 58 years old and I'm taking a golden parachute from IBM. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I go out and see the gentleman, sit down with him. Turns out he's got $750,000 sitting in a 401k. And because he's divorced from his first wife and married to his second wife, the judge in his divorce told him that he had to get a $250,000 life insurance policy on himself to cover his ex. Wow. And he could do that and not get another $250,000 policy to cover his his new wife.
That sounds like a headache.
Oh, it was a big headache, all right? And now this was the first really big client I'd ever gotten in front of like this. And so I did all of the stuff that Northwestern taught us to do. I went through the complete financial analysis, blah, blah, blah. And I started writing up the paperwork and all. And then I did something that, because I've been in sales a long time, even as a biomedical engineer, I was in sales, okay? I did something that I think is very important, especially for new people in the business to understand. I said, you know what? I'm really not a highly experienced guy in this business.
That's a huge change.
What I said to him was, what I'd like to do, because I want to make sure that everything that I'm doing here is really the right thing for you and is really going to do all the things that you need. What I'd like to do is I'd like to schedule another appointment with you in the next week. And I'd like to bring my mentor out with me. Number one, to go over all the paperwork and to make sure that I did everything properly.
You
And
know,
number two, he might see something that I missed.
that's honesty.
Okay.
That's complete
Yeah.
transparency.
Now here's the clincher. Fortunately, my mentor was the Series 8 in our office. All right. I go back with Calvin Keller and we sit down, and all the paperwork that I did, he said, right on the money. You did a great job, Tony. However, you missed something.
What
I go,
was it?
really? He goes, yeah. Calvin uncovers another $1.5 million in assets.
Oh, snap, that was a huge miss. You
I
better be
was sitting,
glad you brought him
I
there.
was sitting with another broker, and Calvin figured out that we could probably save him 50% of the money he was spending on with that other broker by transferring those funds over to Northwestern's investment platform.
I know he was a happy man.
Well, I didn't have my 7 at the time, so I couldn't have done anything anyway, you see. However, what it taught me was all of 100% of a small loaf is great, but 50% of a big loaf is better. Okay. And so I always advise new guys that, listen, don't be afraid that if you need to bring in a more experienced guy, you do it,
And
because
that
you're going to only be a winner in the end.
and that right there is a grand lesson right there in itself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That is like the biggest thing I think that needs the huge lesson that we all can learn from. Because I feel like a lot of us decide honestly we get too prideful. We don't want to ask for help when you can be
And this is
missing
a
out
tough
on
business.
so
Come
much
on.
greater.
There's no way that in 4 months you know enough about investments and about insurance and about all of it. There's no way. It's impossible. Heck, I've been doing this 30 years, and you want to know what? I consider myself an expert on the insurance side of the business, especially in the cases of people who are planning their estate. That's where my expertise is. Okay. If you tell me you've got $200,000 that you want to invest, I'm bringing in one of my partners. Duh. That's all. I'd rather split the bit. I'm not messing around with that. Forget it.
He's like, nope,
Okay.
we
Okay.
set another
All right.
appointment. I got to bring somebody in.
I mean, if you need a second to die policy to protect your heirs, okay, from the tax man or from each other, okay, and you have health issues and you're afraid you're not going to be able to get covered, I'm your guy. I know how to get you that policy at a reasonable cost, okay? But if you've got a portfolio that's being managed by Morgan Stanley and you're looking to figure out how to save some money, I'm not the guy. I got to bring in one of my partners.
He's like, I'm not the guy, but I got someone who is your guy. Just hold on.
Exactly right. Exactly right. The same way that I tell people, listen, you're looking to buy leads from me. I work with every major company, Morgan, Merrill, Wells Fargo, you name it. Every insurance company, Guardian Life, West, Northwestern, you name it, okay, across the country, okay? And one of the things that I try to tell people is, listen, there's 7 or 8 major data mining companies, all of which most people have heard of, like Info USA, Experian, okay, Database USA. There's a few other ones, okay, that are really big, okay. And one of the things that makes me laugh when I look at their websites, every one of them will tell you the same thing. They go, oh, well, we've got 250 million households. We have 125 million businesses. We have, well, guess what? That's because they all have the same data. Okay? It's all the same data. Okay? Wow. The question really is how do you take that data and put it together for your specific need? Okay? I'll give you a very good example of what I'm talking about. I have a few guys across the country that are what you call, they like to invest in commodities. They're commodity investors, okay? I'm sure you've heard of that, okay? And a couple of things that are absolutely necessary if you want to call people to talk about a commodity move, okay? Number one, they have to be accredited investors, okay? And if you don't know what an accredited investor is, look it up in the SEC. They'll tell you what an accredited investor is. That's number one, okay? But number two, and this is more important than anything, okay? In your belief, what do you think is more important to somebody? Making more money or guarding their wealth?
Guarding their wealth.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, why am I asking you this question? I'm asking you this question because if you're talking about commodities, okay, what you're going to see very quickly is that there is two completely different ways to invest in commodities. One way to invest is because you believe that commodity is going up, okay? But the other way to invest is because you want your investment to protect your fortune in case it doesn't go up, in case it goes down, okay? So what am I talking about? I'll tell you what. If you came to me and said, Tony, I'm a commodities guy, I want to sell commodities, what I'm going to say to you is, you know who I'd like you to talk to? Accredited investors who are farmers. Accredited investors who are in the oil industry. Okay? Accredited investors who are in the natural resource and businesses around the country. Okay? And here's the reason. If you're out in Kansas and you've got 40,000 acres planted in wheat, okay, and you've got your whole life savings, you have all your friggin' money tied up in that crop. If the weather is good and you don't run into any problems, God bless you, you're going to make a lot of dough. But I got to tell you what, I can guard that fortune for a mere 5 or 10% of it by buying options on the wheat crop for the next 12 months. Because if it goes down, I'm a winner. Even though my crop failed, I'm still a winner.
Because it's protected. And
that's right.
It takes a lot of ease off a person. So they're like, I'm still good.
That's exactly right. Like right now, if you're invested in oil right now, you're biting your nails.
Every day. And hoping something political. Everything and hoping something political don't shift the whole thing.
If you're drilling for oil right now, and you're hitting dry hole, you're dead. Okay, and so that's what I bring to the table.
Awesome,
I'm
awesome.
not. If you come to me and say, I'll give you another. Tell you if you got time, I can tell you another great story.
Gotcha. Oh well, yeah. Go ahead and
All right,
give me
I
one
got
more
a
good
more.
one.
I do a lot of business with a few guys at JP Morgan. I don't know if you ever heard of JP.
I'm pretty sure we
Okay.
all have.
Well, I had one of them. He calls me up and he goes, I can only handle investors that have $5 million or more. All right. Now I'm going to tell you something. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, once you get over $1 million net worth, the data gets very fuzzy.
How so?
It's very hard to track anything over $1 million plus in assets. Okay, and that's the honest truth. So it's very hard for me to look at a database, and trust me, I look at many databases across that are out there. Okay, to find databases that I can say absolutely, let's say within an 85% accuracy level. Okay. Oh yeah, these people all have over $5 million in investable assets. So I had to figure out a way how I could show this guy customers who have at least $5 million in investable assets. And I just happen to live in a place in South Jersey, which is near a little town called New Gretna. And New Gretna is it's a coastal town. And they have a very famous yacht maker that has their main factory right there in New Gretna. It's called Viking Yachts. So I decided to take a trip down to see Viking Yachts just to get an idea what it takes to get a yacht. So what I come to find out is for something to be classified as a yacht, it's got to be at least 50 feet long.
Okay.
Number two, I find out in the state of New Jersey and in most coastal states in the country, if you have a yacht, it has a special licensing.
Okay.
And that data, by the way, is purchasable. You can get that data. Okay.
Bingo.
Bingo. The next thing I find out is that to buy a 50-foot yacht, the cheapest one is like $1.5 million.
Boy, you getting some real data now.
All right, wait a minute. But that's a cheap one now. You got to understand, that's a cheap one. All right. Now, but what really caught my eye was to operate that sucker can cost anywhere between $150,000 and $200,000 a year.
There you go.
So I'm figuring, okay, if you own one of these, you gotta have $5 million at least, right?
Yeah, you gotta have some. You probably just gave somebody the life-changing information right between us.
So anyway, so I find out that in one state, the state where this one individual was from, there were 3,000. So, and they were not cheap, by the way. They were the list was expensive, okay? But he said, okay, I'll take them. Never heard a word from this guy. Again, never a word, all right? Except that 6 weeks later, I get a call from another state.
Okay.
JP Morgan. Same thing, same exact thing. So I go through the same routine again. Turns out for where he's looking for, I had 4,000. He takes them. Wait a minute. Never hear from this guy again. Never heard from him again. See, because a lot of the guys that are successful with this stuff, they don't want anybody else to know, you see.
Because they don't want no other competitors.
They don't want any competition.
They're like,
So So now I get a call, and this is the funny thing. I don't know if you know who the CEO of JP is.
Enlighten me.
A fellow by the name of Jamie Dimon.
Okay.
Well, Jamie Dimon happened to have been a client of mine when he was running Smith Barney back in the, I'm going to say, middle 90s. And I was with another company. I was with a company called Seco Financial. And I know Seco was selling him like 2 million names a year or something for the, for Smith Barney. And so anyway, I don't hear anything from these guys. And then I get all of a sudden, out of clear blue sky, I get a call from JP Morgan in New York City.
Funny how that turns out.
The home office. Their question to me is, how many of these yacht owners you got in the country? 90,000. We'll take them.
And the rest is history.
Okay, and this happens, this stuff like this, the funny thing is, you got to understand, I've been in the marketing side of the business since 94. Okay, and this happens over and over again. And the only way that I know that I'm succeeding is when guys either send other guys to me or they come back and they buy some more.
Which clearly is happening, and the fact they're trying to keep it secret, but it's not working because they keep coming back to you. Somebody finds your information. That's hilarious.
And,
but I feel like,
and that, my friend, is how I will end the B portion of this.
So yeah, I know after this I'm about to bring you back in for the next
episode.
Well, I know
the last episode is C, and that's about how do you handle your clients.
And that is why I'm breaking to pieces, because right now they are loaded. You just taught me something. So with that said, do you want to leave any lasting comments for wrap everything up?
Only that I always answer my phone, and you have my number, so give it out. That's all I can tell you.
If your phone blows up, you know why.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
All right, with that said, I might just slip this thing in the link. I'm not gonna do that. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this great information. It's your host, Chris Holmes, and I have my special guest by the name of
Tony Panico.
Make sure you subscribe, share, comment below, and keep this information going, because we want to help you elevate to the next level. Peace and much love.
Have a great day, guys.